In Luke chapter 3, we see Yeshua being baptized in the River Jordan by John the Baptist, and that he receives the Holy Spirit, and that he goes into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. This is where it rolls over into Luke chapter 4. In Luke chapter 4, after Yeshua suffers the temptation by Satan in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights, he goes out and he starts his ministry. The first thing we see in Luke 4 is that he starts on the Sabbath day in the synagogue teaching the book of Isaiah to all the people. He's called up and he goes and he reads out of the book of Isaiah, specifically out of chapter 61. He says, "The Spirit of Jehovah is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, and to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of the sight to the blind, and to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of Jehovah." But this should prompt a question for you. Why was he reading this specific verse, and where was this in the prophet Isaiah's writings? This is in chapter 61, so let's go ahead and flip over to that and take a look real quick. So verse 1, "The Spirit of Jehovah God is upon me, because Jehovah has anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek." So he says good, not glad here, but good tidings unto the meek. "He hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, and proclaim liberty to the captives, and opening of the prison to them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of Jehovah, and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn." So there's also another place in Isaiah where he writes something very, very, very similar. And Paul also confirms this, but also a surprise I'll add at the very end of this video. But let's go ahead and switch over to Isaiah 52 to continue reading upon what the Messiah and Isaiah is trying to explain here. So verse 5, "Now therefore, what have I here, saith Jehovah, that my people is taken away for naught? They that rule over them make them to howl, saith Jehovah, and my name is continually every day blasphemed. Therefore my people shall know my name. Therefore they shall know that in that day that I am he that doth speak. It is I." This is talking about the second Exodus. This is getting ready to happen. In Hosea 2, it says that the woman has the name of Baal in her mouth, and in the wilderness he's going to take that name out of her mouth. So in the Old Testament prophecies, you see this Baal guy whose followers put a tree at his altar and also have graven images of him all over the place. Use your imagination on who that is today. What Isaiah is trying to tell you here is that the people are going to eventually forget the name of the Father, and they're going to continuously blaspheme his name every day. But what's he going to do? "Thy watchmen shall lift up the voice, with the voice together shall they sing like one man, for they shall see eye to eye," again like one man, "when Jehovah shall bring again Zion." This is the second Exodus. It's getting ready to happen. "Break forth into joy, sing together, you waste places of Jerusalem, for Jehovah has comforted his people and has redeemed Jerusalem." So the watchman, right? What does Yeshua also say in Mark 13? He tells you, "What I say unto the porter, I say unto all, watch." So what does it mean to watch? It means to be a watchman that raises up their voice in the last days, warning the people. Who are these people? These are the people who have taken the call to watch in Ezekiel 2 and 3, and they are accepting the job of Ezekiel 33, going up against the people in Ezekiel 34 and Jeremiah 23. And also, I encourage you guys to put all of these chapters up side by side with each other so you guys can let the Father confirm his word to you guys. So in Romans 10, Paul is telling people that they're going to eventually lose the gospel. They're not going to know the name of the Father. And what's the Father going to do? Exactly what Isaiah just said. "How then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher?" Jeremiah 23 tells you that these pastors who are raised up are going to go and scatter the sheep and scatter the flock because they're preaching falsehoods and fables, when Paul tells us in the letters in Timothy and Titus that we need to be reproving, rebuking, and with all exhortation and long suffering of these guys who are just outright lying to God's people. And in that same exact chapter, Paul goes and quotes Isaiah 52. "How beautiful are the feet of those who preach the gospel of peace, who bring glad tidings of good things." Paul is literally telling you that the only way these people in the end days are going to hear the true gospel are going to be because of these people with beautiful feet who walk upon the mountains preaching the glad tidings of good things, the gospel of peace. So who are these people with these beautiful feet. These people are the peacemakers that Yeshua is talking to in the Beatitudes in Matthew 5. The Watchmen. And what are the mountains that they're walking on top of? It's the prophets. Yeshua said, enter into the work of the prophets and reap what they sow, and together both you shall rejoice. So who are the people who do that? The ones who accept the call to watch, the ones who become the watchmen, which is confirmed by Ezekiel 2 and 3, the preceding verse that Paul was talking about in Romans 10, which is explained in Isaiah 52. Woo! So back to what Isaiah was saying in Isaiah 61, when he was proclaiming liberty to the captives, he's talking about the northern and southern kingdoms who were put into captivity through the world because of their disobedience to God. He came to set them free. He came to refresh the covenant made with our fathers at Horeb and to eliminate the sacrificial law. If you believe in him, you can walk in liberty. So when Paul tells you in Galatians 5, walk ye therefore in liberty, he's telling you to walk according to the law of liberty in James 2, the 10 commandments that we are all going to be judged by. This is also why we are called as followers to judge righteously according to the 10 commandments, because we are all going to be judged according to the 10 commandments. The whole goal is to get your brothers and sisters to be keeping them with you so you both can walk into the kingdom, because if you don't, you can't walk in. Understanding Paul also can be pretty difficult if you don't understand the transgressions of Israel and Judah that led up to the Messiah's sacrifice. The first transgression was Adam and Eve in the garden, and it earned them the penalty of death, because we all will suffer one death, and it also earned men and women their own respective curses. The second transgression is when the people of Israel had received the 10 commandments at Horeb and went to the base of Sinai and built the golden calf directly after they accepted the marriage covenant with the Father. This earned them sacrificial law to where they had to establish a Levitical priesthood to do animal sacrifices temporarily until the Messiah comes, because again, Moses prophesied that there was going to be a great prophet raised up from among the people to go preach the desires of Horeb, the original covenant made with our fathers, and to relinquish the sacrificial law, which at the time they didn't even know how that was possible. But in legal terms with God, nothing's impossible. He loopholed his own law and sent his son so we could be reconciled back to him through the original covenant that was given to our fathers at Horeb. The third transgression is when the kingdoms were split into two, and Israel, again playing the role of Eve, gave in and ate the spiritual forbidden fruit, such as spiritual idolatry and adultery. They were going against the commandments of God, just like she was going against the commandment of God in the garden not to eat of that forbidden fruit. Israel went and did the same thing, and then they get divorced from Jehovah and scattered by the Assyrian Empire to the four corners of the earth, where they still are today. Judah, in all of this, plays the role of Adam once again, because Judah, did not go and warn Israel that they were committing spiritual idolatry and adultery in the land, and they had all this crap for Asherah and Balaam worship all over God's house. So Israel gets scattered to the four corners of the earth, and Adam, of course, eats the forbidden fruit. Judah starts doing the same exact thing, and then they go into Babylonian captivity. They get cast out of the garden. Eventually, later on down the line, Cyrus grants the Israelites permission to go back to Jerusalem, where they remain under Babylonian regime and control, even unto the time of the Messiah. So because of these transgressions, God sends his son to go fix the mistake of Adam, and then he goes to fix the mistake of Judah. Adam didn't correct Eve. Judah didn't correct Israel. He's the second Adam and the Lion of Judah. So the Messiah, Isaiah, and Paul all knew that we were supposed to be loving our brothers as ourselves, and that this was going to be the gospel that was lost over time, and that God was going to raise up his own shepherds to go start reminding the people, hey, we haven't been loving our brothers as ourselves, biblically, through the gospel of peace, the holy covenants of promise, to give sight to the blind. If you're spiritually blind and you don't know the truth, and then somebody comes and tells you the truth of God, your eyes have just been opened. The former reigns, they were doing literal miracles, but now we are in the latter reigns where we can do the same exact miracles, but spiritually. The flesh has been crucified. We are now to live by the Spirit. Come on, guys, you guys can do this. Another reason why Paul absolutely knew what he was writing in Romans 10 is because if you flip over and read Romans 11, he warns the believers, do not make the same mistake that the northern kingdom of Israel made, or how much sooner will you be cut out? Because remember, they were doing the equivalent of Christmas and Easter back in the land back then, and God divorced them and kicked them out of the land. You guys are doing the same exact thing today, and what's he getting ready to do to you guys? Read your book and find out. But here's the real icing on the cake. Here's the real kicker and the real seal to prove it all. Moses knew this. The prophets knew this. The Messiah knew this. Paul knew this. But not only them, the Zadok priests of the order of Melchizedek also knew this gospel and preached the same exact gospel that my brothers and I are preaching. And they said, and they knew it, that God was going to raise us up in the last days to start going out, proclaiming liberty and setting captives free and giving sight to the blind and warning the people of their destruction. And here we are, right on time, right on schedule. The Spirit of God is absolutely real. And if you guys want to go read that document, here it is. And let me get something super clear really, really fast. I am not saying that I'm better than anybody else. I'm not saying I worship better than anybody else. I just don't worship the way that I think is right. I worship the way that God told us to, and especially emphasized through his Son. But yeah, hope y'all learned something today.